Hello, everybody, and welcome to my channel. So, in today's video, we're going to be talking to someone that recently made the career change from biology into cybersecurity audit. And the goal of this is to share with you how you can also transition from whatever industry you're in into the field of cybersecurity audit and compliance. And with that, we're going to get right into it. So in today's video, we are going to be talking to someone that recently started her career in IT cybersecurity audit. And I want you to listen to her so that you can get some insights into how she was able to successfully make that transition. Because guess what? Her background was in biology. She had a PhD, a whole PhD in biology, and now she's in cybersecurity audit. So I think listening to this interview is going to really motivate you, and more than motivate you, it's going to just give you some insights into how you can transition into the field of IT, cybersecurity, audit, and compliance. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started. All right. So thank you again, everyone, for joining. And hello, Benny. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you, Pedro, for having me. I'm
Right.
doing well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Benny. I really appreciate you taking this time to speak with us today because I know you're pretty busy. So thank you so much. And so here we're going to go ahead and get started because everyone wants to listen to the real information we have to share. So Benny, do you want to start off by giving us a bit of your background, share your background with us, and just what you've done previously?
Yes, as you have said, my background is that I'm a first generation immigrant from Nigeria. My parents brought us here as the whole family to better our lives and to give us a better opportunity. And so I did a few years of high school, like 2 years of high school in Minnesota. And then I went to the University of Minnesota Duluth, where I majored in biology and psychology. So I got a double degree in biology and psychology. And the goal was to have to do research because I fell in love with biomedical research in undergrad. So I did a pathway program that led me to South Carolina for a post-baccalaureate program to explore grad school more. Because from as someone that has Nigerian parents, I'm sure most Nigerians will tell you that there's only basically three professions that you can do, especially for females. You can either be a nurse, you can be a doctor, a lawyer, and they won't let you know they'll be hopeful that you want to do engineering, but if engineering was not there, at least that doctor, lawyer, nursing was a big were the big three, especially for females. And so with that, going into research, I thought I wanted to be an MD. However, as I was doing research in undergrad, I fell in love and realized that there was something called a postdoctoral degree or a doctor of philosophy where you do more research and you ask the questions to further understand pathways. So with that in mind, I went for my PhD because I was very fascinated with the molecular biology of disease. And so I did a PhD in biomedical sciences where my focus or emphasis of my PhD was in biomedical pathways and protein-protein interaction. So very heavy, biochemistry heavy, and I'm looking at stress response. And so after my PhD, or while I was doing my PhD, I also realized that I was interested in immunology. And so the next path forward for me was to do a postdoc. And so I sought out a postdoctoral fellowship in the institution that I am currently at. And I got the opportunity to work on HIV models in non-human primate or animal models of HIV, specifically non-human primate models. And so during my postdoc, I realized that I wasn't finding fulfillment as much. And so because the pathway to becoming a faculty member became less and less clear and less interesting to me. So I had to join. Luckily, our institution had a very robust postdoctoral program and career program for our postdoc fellows. And so using that, I did a mind program that helped me learn more about alternate careers apart from being an academic. And so with that, I started looking at other career options, and then I stumbled upon IT audit, and I was very interested from the bat. And that's how I stumbled upon your course. It was recommended to me by a fellow postdoc in the lab who felt that my skills and my interest in audit compliance and will fit. I could be able to transfer my skills. And that's how I started my journey into IT audit.
So awesome. So that is an impressive background. Like you're smart, smart. Not just like when book smart, like you're smart all around because getting a PhD in biomedical sciences, I think you said, it's a big deal. Like that's a lot to learn. And just as you said, you reached the highest level, right, of that career. But something was still calling to you from the world of cybersecurity. But like there was something that was still not complete. So the second question, like if you want to think about it, what's that pain point? The undesired circumstance, if we put it that way. What was the issue that you were having or the dissatisfaction you were having? What was that problem that caused you to say, you know what? I'm going to really purchase this program. Because someone introduced you to the program, you listened, and then you had a choice. But in order to actually, pay for the program and do the work, there was something you were trying to solve for. Do you mind sharing what those things might have been that made you say, I think this program is going to solve this problem?
Yes, so I had 3 years, 3.5 years of postdoctoral fellowship. And after my first year, or should I say mostly my second year into the postdoctoral fellowship, because we had a robust program and I was able to see other like junior faculties or new investigators as they started that transition into the faculty role and better understand what it entails. Because I will be honest, I went to the University of South Carolina for grad school, and there wasn't a lot of postdocs, or there weren't a lot of like transitioning faculty members. So I didn't get to see that side of the transition because I was already familiar with people that were already full professors, that were already tenured or mostly about to get tenured, or way what I will call like mid-level faculty members. So that transitioning early stage investigator um, um, process, I wasn't aware of it. And that was what I really am grateful for the institution that I ended up in, because I was able to see more clearly, because there were different coming in as a first year postdoc. We had a fourth year postdoc that was transitioning. And my advisor also had like, she was sponsoring her first postdoc that finished and is now a junior faculty or new investigator. And she was an associate faculty. So it was really good to see how she moved from her small startup lab during the course of my time as a postdoc to her current lab where she's now an established investigator. And, that process got me thinking about what I wanted to do and where I wanted to see myself. And one of the pain points for me was that I like to visualize and make plans. And if I don't see myself doing this in 5 years, I know there's something wrong. So that was the first red flag for me that, going down this faculty path might not be the right point. And then another thing was that the more I did the more I was in the lab and, running the project, I realized that I started finding joy, not in the run, not in the active, like the bench work, I will say, for lack of better term, but I found myself enjoying the mentoring that I was doing with the research specialists that I work with, and also with the undergrads that I finally convinced my professor to be able to allow in the lab so that we can have mentorship and training. And I realized that, and also the project management aspect of the project, because it was a huge project. I mean, we had a full blown, what we call translational preclinical animal studies with 30 animals enrolled in this study with three different arms getting different treatments. So there was a lot of people involved that I loved that aspect of collaborating and reaching out to them, the aspect of drafting the project plan, I will say, for lack of scientific word to describe it, and everything. And, getting in touch with the vets and the research specialists and all the people that were involved in like the active care of the animals. I realized that brought me joy as opposed to like the grueling part of like actually processing the tissues. And also like I realized I wasn't getting enough time to just sit down and think about the science. And so looking at that and putting myself in the position whereby I will be starting my lab, and as a new research investigator, usually it's mostly you and probably one or two other people that you hire in the lab, during your first few years of birthing that lab or establishing that lab. And I realized that I was beginning to see myself less and less in that. And so with that, I think the vocabulary to actively the active vocabulary to define that was I wasn't finding fulfillment in what I will see or what I saw myself, and also grant writing was something that I was not interested in doing at all, which is one of the solid foundations of facultyhood or research faculty, is that you're going to have to write a lot of grants to bring in the money to do the research. And for me, that was a wrap for me. I realized, okay, this is not how I was finding fulfillment, because basic science takes long periods of time to come to fruition. And I realized that I wanted something more active, something that I could see immediate effects, not 10 years from now or 20 years or even God knows, 50 years from now. With some of the research that we're seeing, it didn't make sense 50 years ago, but now we're able to do because of advancements of technology and everything. And there was a seed that had been sown in me since I came to this country, which is exploration technology, but I was always scared, even in undergrad, about what computer science meant, because I thought that was for like, the crazy people that did mathematical derivatives and stuff like that. And I struggled with math, and I knew there was a lot of computational and coding and stuff, and I didn't understand the coding language. I'm still struggling to learn Python and R just for my, bioinformatics data analysis. And so I didn't feel that I could easily break into tech because I felt it was too technical for me.
Mhm.
However, having like, looking at the audit and, being exposed, to the introductory class that explained what auditors do and how they bridge the gap and how it's a gateway to tech, I was like, you know what, that is my in, and so that was what helped me solidify taking that bull's head and signing up for the class. As soon as I saw that, I went to the also the informational video about Pedro's class, and explaining how you did not need prior experience, that you were going to learn the skills in the class. And that was my fear. Once I saw that that fear was going to be bridged in the class and that the foundations were going to get the foundational knowledge needed to actively execute this job, and knowing that I had already had some of the qualities like the project management qualities, and experience in the, last 7 years, if you count grad school, the 5 years of grad school as experience in project management, initiation, completion, and execution. I realized that, okay, this was the best way to get into tech and then slowly build my career forward in this. And that was the circumstances. And also another thing that we don't talk a lot, but it's like the big elephant is in the room, is the finances, the financial strain of being a postdoc. I've seen it personally. I'm fortunate that I'm single, so I'm only taking care of myself. But there are a lot of family-oriented people that are actively in this postdoc, and it's a struggle. Some people have to have two jobs to make end meet because of the pay was not justifiable for the amount of work and time that we put into this. So for me, that I'm trying to build a family and being a young person, I was like, you know what, I need a more stable job that had more job security, because as postdocs, we're also not considered full staff, so we didn't get a lot of the benefits that full full staff at an institution will get. So we got half and half. We're just in that vacuum. Sometimes they consider us staff, sometimes they consider us student. I was lucky though that my institution, we did have some benefits like healthcare, which is now part of the NIH package for postdocs, to provide health insurance. But still, not having being in your 30s and realizing that if I wanted to stay and become a faculty, that's another 5 more years, which would put me technically like closer to my mid 30s. And I still don't have a Roth IRA or retirement plan, or I cannot save money for like, building a house or like, renting or owning my own house. So like even for like child care, as I want to have family in the future. I felt that was not the stability that I needed, especially on that path to faculty. And so with that, the financial decision was one of the last straws, or the nail that sealed the coffin for me. And so I was looking for other opportunities where I could use my transferable skills to better land a better job that was more stable and something that brought me more fulfillment. And so,
Awesome, awesome. So thank you for sharing that. So essentially, one was fulfillment.
yeah,
Even though you had reached the highest level, you really weren't getting fulfillment in the role anymore, and you didn't see yourself in that role long term. And then, in addition to not having fulfillment, the financial piece of it wasn't working as well because you're doing all this hard work, but the pay is not reflecting the amount of work, as
yeah,
you said. And the reality is, a lot of people assume that when you have all these degrees, it equates to more money. And
that is
that's what we always tell people. It's not about the degrees, You could have a degree in the highest field. If the salary for that degree is low, that's what you're going to get. So it seems those were the two issues that you had, and you're like, okay, I think this program solves this. Let me go ahead and get started. So good. Thank you for sharing that. Now, because we're trying to teach people, like, or share your story with people to show them how you did this practically. Buying the course is one thing, implementing the course is another thing, right? So for you, how did you go ahead to implement, all the things that we teach in the program? Because the program teaches, we teach the practical skills, we have the coaching, we have all of that. How did you implement that so that you could then land the role that you landed?
That's a good question. So for me, I had a lot of like things to strive with joining the program because, as you said, I have a high degree in, the maximum degree you can get on the biology at an institution. So that is it. I can get any more degrees from that. And so with that in mind, I was very highly skilled or trained in like molecular tissue work and stuff. So getting used to like technology and understanding, how to transfer my skills, these highly specialized skills, of which most of them were like in a lab-based setting, for example. I struggled with that at the beginning of the course, and I'm someone that learns with not only my brain but my whole body. So I need to do the action, and so with that in mind, I was like, okay, I needed to find a way to have this translate. And so I started looking for internships and also like, joining organizations that will help me learn more. So one of the organizations I joined was ISACA. And ISACA is the information systems national organization, and at the organizations that also conduct their certifications in IT audit or in information system securities and cybersecurity. So I knew that first of all, if I was going to do this part, I wanted to know what my skills gap was, what my transferable skills was. And Peju's class did a good job. So your class, Peju, did a good job. I'm talking as Peju's class as if you're not stating here. So Peju's class. The class did a great job of, off the bat in the first two classes. First of all, breaking down just the overview of what, IT audit is, what the skills that we're gonna learn were, and also how we can apply it to real jobs, and what job titles and job roles, and also what certifications come with this kind of degree as you progress through. So once I heard the CISA, I was like, okay, who was administering it? We found out that it was the ISACA. So I was like, I'm from Atlanta here. I'm in the greater Atlanta area. And so I said, did we have an Atlanta chapter? Of course we did. And so I decided to sign up for ISACA and also to join your networking program because for me, I believe, you need to be in the environment you want to be and that's how you learn quicker, And so I signed up for that. So that was one step of implementation as the class started. The second step is that I found out that since I'm a postdoctoral fellow or trainee at my institution, and I'm very lucky to be at the institution that I am because it's a very big institution with multiple departments. When we had gone over the slides about like the different parts of an audit report or the audits in general, the life cycle of an audit, initiation, field work, reporting, and then the draft of the audit reports, I was like, does my institution A have an internal audit department? B, is there a report? And so that's how I first started out with Googling my institution's audit reports, stumbled upon the financial audit reports, but then at the back of the financial audit reports, you also have the IT part of it for the infrastructure securities. And that's how I found the organizational chart of who were in the audit or internal audit department, because we have an internal audit department. We are not a public institution, we're private. And so we didn't have external auditors on there, but the internal audit org chart was there. So I started by reaching out to the senior IT auditor that was listed on the 2021 audit report that was published on the website. And for people that are wondering that are institutions, universities, or even companies, I feel like these reports are published. They should be public. And so if you do a Google search, you should be able to find it. Or if you want, you can just look for your internal audit team to see if your company is big enough to have that. And if they are, you can do that, because that's how I decided to find myself an internship, both internally using the resource I had and also externally. I was networking with the ISACA group, but I felt like as a trainee, we had more leverage. That was, I would say, one of the benefits of being a postdoc is that, we have these, and being part of the institution as a semi-employee, I was already in the system. And so I reached out, sent some informational interviews up, interviewed the old senior IT auditor or director on the report on LinkedIn. He reached out to me. He was so happy to connect and share his experience and everything, because I introduced myself and told him that I was a postdoc and I'm trying to transition/pivot into this career. And I saw that he's at the same institution. Is he willing to just meet with me so that I can learn more about the roles and his career path through the audit? And I also saw that he had a CISA as well. And so I wanted to gain some knowledge about how he went about acquiring that certification. And so, long story short, I talked to him. He said he's no longer at the institution, but that he can refer me to, he can connect me with people at the current directors, or like, people holding his position at the institution. And so I thanked him for his time and, for him talking to me and everything. And I went back and looked for the next 2 years report after his time, and because he gave me a timeline of when he left. And so with that, I went back and I found a different audit report that had already been published similarly. And I found the new heads that were, or the new people in the org chart. And I went, same thing, reached out, looked at their LinkedIn profile, reached out to them on LinkedIn. And however, this time I went extra because since they're part of the organization, I had access to their emails. I went ahead and sent them cold turkey emails as well about informational interview, telling them that I was part of the university and I was interested in, and I was in trying to do this career change if they had time to meet with me. And I was lucky because that came to fruition. And the senior, the IT director, he reached out to me back. He responded. He was like, "Yeah, sure. I'm open to talk to you." And I think he was fascinated because he was not also a traditional auditor, or what we call a traditional auditor, which is someone that either had a CPA, a public accounting degree, or had audits in as part of their formal college degree. And so he was like, yeah, he was also biology, and he ended up in the business school. And from the business school, he worked in the tech, IT, and he's more analytics based. But however, that's how he ended up in the role he ended up in as the IT auditor. IT audit director. And he was like, yeah, that he's done that transition or pivot. So he totally understands. And so we talked and we just clicked. It was a very lovely conversations, and he said I should reach out to his co-director because there's three arms to our internal audit. And I was like, yeah, I already reached out to her. And so I reached out to his co same level colleague that was also like in the research audit, because he was like, they also have a research audit in case I was interested in that because, I have background in research. I was like, no, the course I'm doing is IT. I will consider this. Glad to know. But right now we need to solve the IT audit situation. And so I also talked to his other colleague, and she was so excited. And it was funny because she had reached out to him, was like, hey, guess what? This postdoc reached out to me and everything. And he was like, I already talked to her. She's really cool. We met. And so that kind of made her excited as well to talk to me. So she was talking to me, being very excited. And I think she, up till today, when I see her, because she's now a boss, she's now my boss as well. She always says that she is just impressed about how I networked my way into the job. Not to spoil the stuff, but I ended up getting a position after my internship. But after having that informational interview with them, I told them thank you, and then I took the plunge, especially with her, because she was in a decision role. She's in a role that can create jobs. And so I asked her if, and I used a different department because we have an Office of Technology Transfer, and they have interns, right? Some of my friends have done that unpaid internship. And I asked her if their department in internal audit had it. And I was like, I didn't even wait for her to answer. I was like, also, by the way, if you don't have it, I'm willing to be a guinea pig. I can be your first student. I don't mind, and everything. Just let me know what I need to do, and stuff like that. So first she was like, okay, I will think about it. And I guess she brought it up, with her team and everything, and they were open to it. And, they ended up she ended up reaching back to me and letting me know that they're excited to let me know that they will give me that opportunity to intern with them. But as a postdoc, I just need to get clearance from my PI. And so that's how I was like, I'm on it. So I went back to my PI because we have this session of the training whereby you have to do career development. And so with that, she, I broke the news to her. I was like, I've told you that I've always been searching, and that I realized that faculty is not my calling and other things. She was like, yeah, yeah. I was like, well, I found this career that I'm interested in. I have already taken the class. I'm in the process of taking the class, and I'm networking. I found an internship. Are you willing to give me 10 hours of protected time? And she was like, oh, wow, yeah. And she was like, yeah. I was like, I just need you to officially send an email with like your signature on it that you agree, since I am, of NIH fellow. And so she was like, yeah, sure. She was very happy to help me that because that's part of our career development as postdocs. And so that's how she co-signed, and I started my internship while I was doing the class. And that really helped me a lot because The internship, we worked with external auditors as well because the internal department is a little bit smaller. It's not that big. So some of the audits projects that had to be done were collaborations that were done with companies like audit companies. We had about two of the big four audit companies as part of our external auditors, and we also have like a small I think it's big, but not as big as the big four, like Deloitte, KPMG, but it's big on itself as well. And but it was more home. I feel like it's a more homey style of audits and stuff. And so they were in charge of the projects that I was working with, and I got to network with them as well. Got to visit their office to help out with documentation and just the excitement. So that helped me a lot, and that's how I was able to successfully implement the program so that when I finished the program, because it took me a year to finish the program grants you is like 8 weeks if you're doing it on steroids, or 10 weeks if you want to like a less steroidy approach. However, for me, I had to stretch it out even more because the nature that I was a postdoc doing this, and I also stopped halfway to get a project management class done as well. That way I could be ready for the PMP as well, So I was in the process of getting myself there. And so that was the career steps I took. And I was fortunate enough that a year after the class, the starting signing up for the class and reaching out to the internal audit department, I was offered a job about 3 weeks ago. And I think I'm currently like officially 2 weeks into my job. I started on March 3rd. And so it's been a very interesting journey. So.
So awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So to if we talk about it, right? You started the class, and again, knowing your learning style, you're like, okay, because our class does have those practical homeworks and assignments and all those things to give you that, simulation experience, like it's the real world scenario. But you were like, you know what? I want to not just do that. I also want to get some additional like live experience in a real job. And you took that opportunity to network. And the reason I'm saying that is because a lot of people underestimate or don't even consider networking, whereas it's a huge part. And we've had several students now that were able to transition in their current companies. That's one of the easiest ways, to be honest. So you reached out to them, you had informational interviews, you networked your way, and they were able to sign you up as their guinea pig, like you said, for their internship program. Right. And during that internship program, I mean, you and I have talked about this before. You pretty much impressed them. Like you showed them that you knew what you were doing. You were able to add value, and all the things that we taught in the class, right? You were able to actually then do in that setting, because all of that is what sets you up for the full-time job. Because if you didn't really do the work, they might not have offered you, because they created that role for you, right? That
Right.
might not have happened, but you actually proved yourself in implementing and doing the work. Now, I want to talk about a story because I don't want us to forget that story. So, you want to tell us about the story about the work papers? Because I think that's going to be interesting for people to know. Because, like, I like people knowing that they get practical information, like stuff that's really being used in the real world. You want to share that story?
Yeah, so part of me doing the internship is that I was finding ways to connect all the modules that we did in class, and also like because we have assignments and we also have like like end of chapter what you call projects to do. And part of one of the modules itself was actually like work papers and documentation. And so in that module, which led to an end of class, like, project portfolio that you can do and use it to showcase that you actually know how to do this work, these work papers. And so I printed all the stuff for the work paper section, and I took it with me because we had done walkthroughs, so I could check that off field work, how to do walkthroughs. We had visited some of the departments on campus to audit some of their distributed IT components. And after that, because as I said before, that the institution I am, the team is very small. So this some of the audit, like the work throughs and the audit project itself was outsourced. So one of the small firms, audit firms that I worked with, um, I call it small because it's not a big four, but it is up there.
Relative.
It's relative, right? We had a director that was in charge of it. We had a project manager, and then we had like an auditor that also was part of the team. So there were three external collaborators from this firm that we're working with. So I reached out to my boss, that my internship boss, and I was like, "Hey, they're doing the work papers, but I really wanna be a part of it. Is it okay if I reach out to them? And is it okay if I even do a field day where I go to their office and see how they are actively doing the work papers?" Because one of the things that was stressed in class was that work papers might be different depending on which company you're at and which firm you're doing it, but most of the foundations and the basics of it is the same. And so for me, I wanted to see how they used, or what tools they used, if they used any tools, or what is the language, because that was the thing that we need to learn, is the audit language as well. And so he was like, "Yeah, from my side, that's fine, but you need to talk to the director to make sure that they're okay based on their, you know, company policies and stuff." So I reached out to them and asked them and told them that, "Hey, I've cleared it with my boss, so he's fine on this side." And they were so happy and they jumped on it and were like, "Yeah." So they invited me over to their campus in the business square in Midtown here in Atlanta. And I had like actually three different time periods that I came to the office, and I now tell them that I'm an honorary member or employee of this company.
Employee for the day, right?
Yep, yep. And so they got me badge access to come in, and I came in. I even took pictures. I'm sure the front desk person was like, "What's going on?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm a tourist. I'm taking pictures." So I took pictures to show proof that I was there. And
Network.
then we had they reserved one of their meeting rooms, and they had a projector, and we were on there. Like they were showing the work papers, like the lead sheets, the test sheets, and everything. And I was like, just to be curious, how different is this test sheets that you're showing me now from what I learned in class? This is what we had. And the and the manager, she was like, "Oh my God, it's the same thing. It's just that it's a little bit like organized differently, and because this is like an internal audit versus an external audit." But she was like, "A lot of the external audits that they do, that basically that's practically the test sheets that they used." And I was like, "Wow, okay." It gave me more confidence that the class I took was legit. And also it made them realize that the class I took was legit, because she was like, "Oh, we didn't even have this," because she has an accounting background, and then she came to audit and stuff like that. She was like, "I didn't even have this." So she was like, "It's good that your training had that." And so with that, I was able to, like, it made me calm down a little to know that, okay, this is not just, smokes or mirrors, or like, something that was pulled out of, imaginary what if hypothesis. Because you have sim labs, right? I TA'd for a lab, and sometimes, when the lab is online, you know how it goes, where people don't think is real, but until they see it in real life, and they appreciate that. And that was for me. So I guess the hardcore scientist in me is, evidence is important. And so and so they were so happy about it. Even the director was so happy. And with that, it even also helped them relate better with me, because I think sometimes, when you have an intern, you're like, "No." I was like, "No, put me to the weeds." And I was so excited. And my boss too was so excited, because they were like, they've never seen someone so excited about work papers. And so,
Get it.
yeah, exactly. And so I think that was very important. And that was what also helped me in solidifying the position, because not only was I like an intern? I showed them that I was passionate. I was willing to go out of my way to go to the, to learn the techniques and everything. And I was always, saying how, I'm learning this, to incorporate it and know how to do it on our end here. And so this further showed to them that I was very enthusiastic and I was willing to learn, and I was serious about this career transition. So when they had an opening and they needed to fill that immediately, I was a go-to because they've seen my work and they could vouch for me, And so, yeah. And also another thing about networking, which I realized that it's a holy grail, was that I had ended up going to one of the career networking events held by the ISACA chapter here in Atlanta. And who did I run into? I didn't even notice him. He was the one that noticed me. And it was the director of the external audit firm that we were working with. And I was introducing myself and I said my name. He was like, "Yeah, I know you," and he introduced himself. I was like, "You do?" And in my mind, I was like, how does he know me? And he was like, "We just met this afternoon on Zoom for one of the distributed." I was like, "Oh my God." I was like, "I'm so embarrassed. You're so tall." Because I'm very short. I'm like 4'11". So, everything taller than 5 foot is too tall for me. And so I was like, I didn't even notice you. He was like, "Yeah, I thought you looked familiar." And so just inherently, it was nice to see that we were both interested in the cybersecurity because it was a cybersecurity conference, I mean, networking event. And I got to learn that not only is he the audit manager, but his own specialty is actually in cybersecurity, very high tech cyber, red team, blue team, and stuff like that. I was like, wow, this is impressive. But he also told me that he started in audit and then he transitioned to cyber. And so I was like, wow. So this, it's helped me see all the different, my mind map of my career started like, firing. And I was like, well, I have GRC, I can do, that's 5 years plan, from there for 10 years, maybe end up in cybersecurity, in the meantime, in 3 years, maybe I can manage, be a manager, use my, project management skills, level up to a, manager in IT, so you see, that was one thing that I wasn't seeing. And this also helped me implement that and also to see that. And that's how, which also fueled me and kept me going in the class because it is a lot of information. It's a lot of information. It's very detailed, foundation knowledge that you need. And it's really funny because now I go on LinkedIn and some of the things that we taught in class, I see all these auditors or like, that are creating audits. Content on LinkedIn repeating the same thing about like, the importance of these and, work papers and stuff like that, and, logical security controls, all of that, showing their plan. I was like, did they lift this from Peju's book? Because this is basically what we're being taught in class. And I was like, I know that, but I liked it because it's just further like validating that the class I had was a complete package that could help me succeed in that first job and which is helping
Um,
me too. So
Awesome. So, a couple of things. So, first of all, before I forget, you're a scientist, right? So, you had to test the hypothesis. And so when you tested the
we got
hypothesis, you were
evidence.
able to prove that it passed. And so that's really good. With the work paper story, I like to share that because, if I may say so myself, when I put together the work paper module, even though work papers can be tough, I was like, I have to teach people the real way so that when they start working, and they see it, it's seamless for them. So when you told me that story and how the auditors, the external auditors, right, were impressed and they were like, oh, it's even better than some of ours. I was like, yes, because again, it goes to show them that you were in a proper program. Like, because one of the things you also shared was that your manager, even when you were an intern, kept encouraging you to actually finish the program because you mentioned you had to stop and some other things, but he encouraged you to finish the program because he knew you were in our program so that you could get your completion certificate, right? And I think you also showed him that we were accredited with ISACA, which
Yes,
helps to up your profile too, right?
yes,
Which
yes.
again, one of some of the reasons I do that is because I want to help our students get a better profile. So you were able to leverage all of that. You finished the class, you showed them that what I'm learning is practical, can be translated. And so when they found out that you were interested in a full-time role and they created that new role, you were the logical person. Like, why
Yes.
hire somebody else? Benny is the right person for this role. And that's how you got that job, right? So thank you
Yeah.
again for sharing. And just not to repeat this so many times, the power of networking again. Just that example you gave about meeting that director. Because the reality is that could have been another open path for you. So let's
Right.
say the one internally didn't work out. That could have been another path for you to say, hey, Mr. Director, working at the big consulting firm that has many more openings. Are you open to hiring me? Right? That's how networking works. You have to show up in spaces where other people are, people that make hiring decisions, right? So that you can put yourself in front of them and they can see your value and then they're able to consider you for the roles when they come up. So that's really exciting. And so I was going to say if you want to share how you got the role, but you kind of shared how, after the internship you got the role. So I'm going to
Yes.
say maybe you'll share that as part of this last question, right? And it's now that you've completed the program, right? And you've landed the job, right? And you've seen all the benefits, of this new role. How would you say, let me see how I wrote your question. Yes, what's the transformation you'll say you experience? How are those pain points, right? You mentioned two pain points with lack of fulfillment and the pay not matching what you were doing. How would you say those pain points have now been addressed, right? Based on you successfully implementing the program and landing a role.
Okay, so I will start with the financial one because that's very easy. So my offer was was more than I had expected, and I think I feel like if the fact that I had a PhD also helped in this aspect, and also like being showing that I brought value and I had very high value to bring. So that helped a lot, but I was still surprised because it's almost double my salary. Not quite double, but very close to it. And I'm sure in a few years, over like in the next 3 years, I should say, I will like have over doubled or doubled plus my salary. And so that in itself, I'm very grateful because that kind of helps, solve the issue of financial instability. I was hired as a full-time employee. So now I have that stability as a full-time employee and also the benefits that came with it. So I guess that kind of reduced the stress because trust me when I say this, a lot of postdocs were very stressed. And so are grad students because that financial piece alone, is enough to destabilize you for a while as you're trying to finish because you always feel like you're financially behind and you're not able to catch up to your peers that went into industry, and so just being able to do that now and set myself up for financial freedom, which is a big thing for me, is becoming financially free of both my student loans and also like from undergrad, and also setting up, to have a better financial future, so that has transformed that. And then I think, being offered this job, it came suddenly, because I was, I was just grateful that I was given the internship because then I had that, experience, work experience that I could use to bridge the gap because I know during the class, and I felt like I would have been asked this in interviews, is that one of the classmates that I was with asked me on LinkedIn, and he was like, "You have a PhD. What are you doing in an IT audit boot camp?" And I was like, "It's not about the PhD, it's about my fulfillment. It's the PhD is a degree." And so with that, I was able to I'm able to, not be boxed into just one field of research. I have more leeway now. And I think I will summarize that in what my grad school mentor told me when I told her of this new transition because she knew when I was taking the class, I kept her up to date. I had a very nice mentor. So she wasn't toxic enough that I cut her off because some PIs are very toxic. And so she was very nice. So I always updated her on my progress. As much as they want us to stay in academia and continue in their footstep or whatever, they're always happy because they're beginning to realize that the academia that they came into when they were young researchers is no longer that academia that it is right now. There are more PhDs being minted than there are faculty positions or even tenure track faculty positions. And so, having alternate careers as a postdoc or as a PhD advanced holding degree is very important, and being prepped for that is very important. So she was very happy that I was able to find a job that I liked and I find fulfillment in because she was fulfilled as a researcher. She found fulfillment in that. And just because I didn't find fulfillment in being an academic researcher did not make me a failure, which is a lot of times how some of us postdocs, PhDs feel that if we don't end up in academia, we're a failure or we sold our soul to industry or farmer or whatever. But in actuality, we're all looking for fulfillment and figuring out how we can use this advanced degree we got, to better the human condition and to make more meaningful contributions to society, regardless of if it's in research, And so I feel like I'm making very meaningful, contributions to my institution because all the things that we do, all the audit recommendations, all the report that are being written, they're being read immediately, in the higher ups, in the C-suites, and this is actively affecting procedures, protocols, security measures that are affecting the whole institution as a whole and even the healthcare system and inadvertently saving lives because we also have a healthcare system component that we are responsible for also auditing the information systems for security and compliance with federal grants, policies and frameworks. So I found a different way to use my degree. And I hope that for people listening to this, they realize that they don't have to be boxed in. And even if you get to the highest level of that degree, it's okay to walk away if it's no longer fulfilling, that is no longer bringing you that fulfillment that you had gone into that career pursuing. And we fortunately, not unfortunately, fortunately live in a society and in a country whereby you can pivot, if you do the right things like I did, take a leap of faith in whatever else you find interesting and pursue the skills, the knowledge, and also do the networking to set you up so that when a job in that field presents itself, you feel more confident and you're able to, be there and, be able to grasp that opportunity, to make that transition. So that's the transformation for me, and another thing that I didn't say much about was work-life balance. I know work-life balance is a myth, but at some point we need to be able to balance our work and our personal life. And for me, my personal life was being sacrificed every single day the last 4 years. I hardly saw my family. I hardly did things because it was all consuming. And that was not the life I envisioned for myself. I wanted a 9 to 5 job. And of course, every job has its times whereby it's not 9 to 5. A lot of auditors will tell you that it is a lot of work to do audits. You have your busy cycles, and when you're busy, but it's not a perpetual busy cycle where you're finishing one grant and thinking of the next grant and thinking about funding. And with everything going on now, it's even crazier. And I was like, I didn't want that kind of life for me. And so being able to be in this position whereby, it's project based for me. I think that was what I needed, was projects that were not eternal, I will call them, projects that had a cycle, they finished and we moved to the next thing. And they're always learning opportunities. So I feel that was kind of where I fit. And that was what was that was the disconnect and why I was no longer finding fulfillment because my project took a long time to run and I'm still even writing my manuscripts and it's going to be another few months to finish the manuscript, and get it to be published and all of that. And it's been 4 years in the making. So it's a lot of it's a long 4 years to wait
Yeah.
for gratification or even acknowledgement and stuff. And so for me, I felt like that was not the kind of um, um, gratification. I was patient, but not that patient in that regard. And so I wanted something that could give me that immediate, not too long of a wait to show that I'm making impact. And I'm not trying to say that my research wasn't impactful. It's impactful. And in
Yes,
the
yes.
future, it will be, but for me, I wanted something that I could see even more immediate than 10, 5, 20 years from now. And I'm grateful to those researchers that have the tenacity, for that level of patience. As you can see, some of them win Nobel Prizes in their 60s and 70s for work that they did in their 20s. And so so it is a gift that I recognize. And I also recognize that um my gift is in a different direction. And so these are how, the pinpoints have been resolved, and for me, as I said, I want to have a family, so financial freedom, big pinpoints, that fulfillment. I already feel fulfilled because I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be in terms of like auditing in general and, looking, because I was always like the compliance chief in my previous role. I was always making sure that we had all our protocols, we followed the SOPs and all of that. And part of audit is basically just checking, are they following the standard procedure? Do they have all the controls there? Are they working as it's designed? Are they working as effectively as they should? What is missing and how do we fix that? How do we recommend changes? So I feel like, it's an innate thing for me that took a long while for me to realize that that was where I needed to be. And, like how research was the conduit to get a PhD, I feel like this audit and IT is the conduit for me to explore my project management skills and my auditing skills, and it was the best of both worlds because now I can do both. I can do audit and project management, and I can also do research audit if later on I'm like, oh, you know what? I want some science back in my life. So you see, it has lateral and vertical ways of diversifying. And I think I segued, but going back to what my mentor said to me, she was like, she's thinking about it, that audit in general is one of the most stable jobs that I could have found and done for myself and skills that I could have acquired because you need auditors in all sectors of life. And once you're an auditor, you're able to audit in different fields, in different areas, in different, industries. And she was like, that's not a lot of job has that flexibility, because she was like, you can go anywhere, not even only in the country, but it's standard. The more standard certificates you have, you can even audit around the world, and ironically, I love to travel and scuba dive. So you see, I can travel, scuba dive, and audit my way through the whole continent,
You have the money to
all
do that
seven
now.
continents. And now I have the financials to do that as well. So, it's a
Awesome.
win-win situation. What a
So that's
transformation.
really great. So your job satisfaction and fulfillment pinpoint has been eased, right? That's been addressed. Now you're finding the work fulfilling. You feel like you're in a fulfilling career path that opens the doors to many other options for you in this field of audit and GRC, right? So that's been addressed. Financial issues have been addressed because now you've pretty much doubled your salary. That's a big deal. And like you said, you now have more work-life balance. I believe you're in a hybrid role, right? You get to
Yes.
work hybrid, so you have more work-life balance so that you can, get those family goals going, right? And your hobbies, you can now you like to travel and scuba dive. Now those are things that you can actually actively participate in. It's
Yes.
amazing. Like that's a really, really great transformation. And it's kudos to you, right? It's one thing to purchase a program, and I know our program is amazing, if I may say so myself, because we really give a lot of training. Just like she said, it's a lot of information because I love to give my students options, real options, so that when they start working, they're like, this is exactly what Paige taught us, right? So, but it goes beyond just purchasing the course. You have to implement, which you shared with us, right? Which you implemented by networking, by reaching out, getting that internship, doing it alongside your work. So that took commitment, right? Because you could have given up. And if I remember the timeline, I think you got that internship just like 3 months after you started the class, right?
Yeah.
And you were still doing that at the same time because you have commitments with your postdoc, right? But you committed to it. So all those are things that showed your new managers that she's serious. She's a great student. She's a willing student, and she's going to be a great employee. And that's how you got rewarded with your role. So kudos to you for doing the work, right? And before I forget, there was something you mentioned now that I want to expand on just a little bit before we wrap up. So you started talking about some of the things that you do in your, or you were doing in the postdoc lab, are essentially transferable skills. So, do you want to just highlight just a little bit? What are some of those transferable skills that you recognized were a perfect fit for the field of IT audit that you were going into, or that you were at least trying to go into when you started?
So the big one for me was, the regulation, compliance and SOPs, having controls. So we work we do animal research. And so we have a lot of IRB approvals. We need to go through, lab safety that we need to do. We have to also have meet IACUC, which is the Animal Review Board stuff. And so as a project lead in my lab, I was solely responsible for making sure that we are up to date in all of that and our SOPs were compliant. So I feel that was something that I could just translate because we are used to being audited all the time. So we have the EHSO, environmental health and safety coming in, every time to make sure that we're in compliance. And they just show up, and you're like, hey, we're looking, want to see your lab, how you're doing stuff. And so with that in mind, that level of being audited, I kind of understood that. And then the biggest thing for me was project management. As I said, the project that I was doing was a big enough project. We had collaborators across 4 institutions. And so I was responsible for being the liaison because as the project lead on this project, I needed to be the one rounding everybody up to make sure that all my data is being analyzed, my samples that need to be sent to the right places being sent. So coordinating with the lab manager to make sure that he's doing all of these. And so also like in terms of like the active lab work or what I'll call work papers, which is putting my study plan together and making sure it's going to the right people and being signed off and making sure that the plan is being executed, So you see how I've already even given you examples of how I translate. I was like, oh my goodness, these are my work papers, all my protocols, all of these, the SOPs that I have to write for the experiments. These are my work papers. And at the end of the day, we have a report, just like you have an audit report summarizing the findings. I have to have my manuscripts that talk about the findings and the result and the data analysis. So it's basically, this is how I realize it. And it's weird because a lot of this I didn't realize at the beginning of the class. It was after I started doing the internship and, being in the spaces, taking more of the webinars from the organizations and also like the extra webinars in Peju's class that talks about like, internship and or I mean making your resume because we have resume prep as part of the course, and being able to realize how this I didn't realize how much of an overlap, and I think one of the things about being an auditor is that independence, curiosity, and drive, and these are something that I'm lucky to have or is inherently built into most of the PhD programs because we need to defend. And in order to defend, you need to be an independent investigator. You need to be able to be curious, because you're defending a project that you came up with, hypothesis and everything. And part of the audit the audits, you're not technically defending, but you come up with ideas based on the interviews you have with the stakeholders on what issues need to be addressed in whatever the audit roles you're doing or the audit engagement, especially if you're working with internal audit, the stakeholders or the review board, and in my case, the university's board of directors and trustees, and they want to make sure that all their controls for financial and you know, information systems are working appropriately because not only do they have a academic research credibility to uphold, but they also have patient care to uphold, and they want to make sure that there are no data breaches, there's no security issues, and that everything is working financially in the way it should go, and also to maximize their profit because they're a private institution.
Mm-hmm.
So in all of that, these are their stakeholders. So when they have their risk assessment every year, they want to make sure that if there's any weakness or pinpoints that need to be addressed, from the audit point of view to make, that's what my role is, my current role as a senior IT auditor in my institution is, right, is to help bridge the gap because some of these risk and analysis brought up by the other stakeholders or the departmental heads, IT staff that do the what we call level one and level two, first and second, what do you call it, command roles in the audits, and so because of that, we are able to be like, okay, we can come check. And part of my role also is also advisory, right? Once we see something from not from an external point of view, because we're internal, we have the leverage to advise. And so we give advice of how to strengthen the system, how to work through the issues we have so that when external auditors come, we are ready. Because we have a healthcare arm to that, we will have external auditors, especially from like the DoD or the federal funded agencies, because they want to make sure that we're in compliance with the frameworks that they have set up in order for us to work with their funding sources. And so, this is basically like science. We need to make sure we are in compliance and we're doing the research in the way that, has integrity and is secure and that, it's, reliable and replicatable. And so that's
Oh,
kind of how I transitioned
heard.
because that's assurance is very important, and that's one of the things both in research and also in audit. And so that's how I was able to start translating. And I was just like, wow. And here I thought at the beginning of the class, because I remember the first resume that I signed up for review, and oh, that resume was torn apart. After that shredding, I was like, nothing. I don't think I can do it. But I kept
You're
going
good.
because I was like, you know what? If I didn't do that, I would have not known, how bad it is, because I was, and so with that, that became the stepping stool, of, doing a better job, with the rest,
Oh,
being more intentional about thinking about how my skills translate, and so that was kind of, yeah, that was also part
oh.
of the pushing point that led me to an internship, to find an internship at all cost. Because for me, I felt the internship will give me the better opportunity to process and effectively translate, because I will be doing both simultaneously and I'll be able to see how it transferred, and
Awesome. So that's really valuable because whenever we say transferable skills, sometimes people are like, yeah, yeah, you always say transferable skills, but they are real. And I like what you said in that you had to sit down to think about it because guess who the best person to identify your transferable skills are? It's you. And we do teach you in the class, we teach you how you can use different tools, AI, and some other resources that we have to identify those transferable skills. But you need to be involved in that process. And so, before I talk about the transferable skills, just to talk about the resume quickly, because in our program, we have our live resume reviews, and we want to make sure students are actively involved in the creation of their resume because they are the ones that have a full knowledge of their skills.
Mhm.
For me, I wouldn't have a full scope of what someone that has a PhD in what biomedical sciences, I can't remember what you, is that,
Biological sciences.
but yeah, I wouldn't have a full scope of all that you did, but you know what you did, right? And so as you were learning the program, attending our calls, watching all our trainings, you're like, wait a minute, very similar things, right? Just like you said, project management is key to audit and compliance. Also paying attention to detail, that inquisitive, scientist mindset, it's a big deal. Documentation, you already document work in your space. Now you just need to document them differently using audit and compliance templates, right? The ability to test against policies and procedures to make sure you're in compliance. That's compliance right there. So by sitting down and really thinking about it as you were going through the materials, you gave yourself that opportunity to uncover a lot of transferable skills that you were then able to put in your resume, and look at you now, right? You've pretty much met all your pain points. And I thought it was important to share that because there might be someone listening to this, right? And whatever the background is, project management, QA, business analyst, finance, accounting, healthcare, whatever your background is, you might be like, what, well, will this work for me? It
Mm.
can, because you also have transferable skills, and we teach this in our program. There are so many transferable skills that you already have that you can leverage. And now, if you also follow your path, right? Network, check within your organization. And of course, internships, apprenticeships, or of course, you don't have to do internships or apprenticeships first, depending on your prior background. We've had so
Right.
many students immediately land full time job offers, right? This is to show you one way that Benny took her approach that worked for her and ended up, in her doubling, almost doubling her salary. And that's a big deal because she was able to implement what we taught. So, for everyone listening, using your transferable skills and making sure that you also get in a proper training program that teaches practical skills that mirror the real world with homework, assignments, and real world practical hands on experience, those combined will really, really set you up for success. So again, I'm so appreciative, Benny, of you sharing your story with us here, because I think you don't know it, but it's going to inspire a lot of people that have been wondering, how do I do this, right? They will listen to your story. They don't necessarily have to follow it step by step, but it's going to give them clues. It's going to give them ideas of how they can also leverage transferable skills, adequate training, right? And networking and other things to land their own rules. So that's a really, really big deal. And I just want to say thank you. Now, before we wrap up, is there anything else that you would like to share with us?
I want to say thank you so much to you, Pedro, and your whole team of instructors at the yourcareeritAudit.com, because you guys have shared shared with me that I could do it, and it's very humbling to see that, that I'm able to find fulfillment. At the end of the day, we're all looking for fulfillment, and I hope that, and thank you for giving me opportunity to share my story, because I have nieces and nephews as well. And nowadays, people get bogged down of trying to fit a particular timeline. And I hope that I can be an inspiration to them, and also to people that get to see this video, that at whatever stage in life you are and whatever career you find yourself sorry, and no matter how specialized it is, once if you're no longer finding fulfillment, take that leap of faith, to find fulfillment in something else that you think will give you fulfillment. And in my case, I was able to do that. And no matter how long it takes you to do, I feel like, being in a position or finding a job that you find fulfillment in, and you fit, and you like your environment. I love the people that I work with. I'm always excited, they're excited to see me. I'm excited to see them. Not that I wasn't excited about the lab and the test tubes and everything, but for me, it's a lot, because a job is like a second home. We spend a lot of our life, in these spaces, and no, and you feeling comfortable and f finding fulfillment in your daily grind is very important for mental health and also for relationships, because then you're not indirectly, passing aggression of like, a failed how you like feeling like a failure or having a failed career and stuff like that. We are never boxed in. I'm very fluid and as I said, I like to learn very things. I'm very inquisitive. And if you have that drive, or even if you're not innately born with that curiosity, at least give yourself that courage. I hope I can lend you that courage to tell you that it's possible to transition within fields, especially in this great country that we are in. Now I understand that not every country has this opportunity and not every part of the world this is feasible, but to your own extent, never tell yourself never. Have a plan. Once you see something, have a plan, find experts that can help you in that field, talk to people, network, build your network. For me, it was important to understand the vocabulary because vocabulary of job descriptions and job requirements and what they mean in my current role as a postdoc helped me translate a lot of that because I think that was probably what the struggle is like, what work papers versus lab reports, work papers versus research articles, work papers, field test sheets versus protocols, and stuff like that. So I had to find what the translation of or transliteration in the vocabulary of the new job is that can be. I was like, oh, well, we do that. We called it this. And so being able to do that, and it is a lot of work, but that just shows your determination. And for me, being like I had the highest degree, one thing is that I didn't tell my family that I was doing this because I wanted to make sure. And until I finished the class, until I had an internship, even when I had the internship, I still didn't tell my family because I wanted to make sure that I was settled in this job because as much as our family love us, sometimes they might not understand it because they were like, you have a PhD, right? You just finished your PhD and you just finished your postdoc. Why changing career all of a sudden? You've been in school this whole time,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's very important that you find people that you can confine that can help you, make sure, give you that confidence to do that. And for me, it was the friend that advised me to take this course. So he kind of knew what I was going through. And even when I felt, that I was, because it was a huge investment from a postdoc that we don't have a lot of money. It was an investment in my future, and now I'm glad I did because now that investment has paid more than paid for itself. And so, but as much as family, you might have that doubt. So unless you know that the family will completely support you or be neutral, you know, it's okay not to let your family know, especially as a young child, a young person, if you're in college, you just graduated and you're like, oh, well, I'm not going to use my degree. It's all right. Look at that. I graduated with two different bachelor's degrees, and well, while they're applied translationally, I'm not doing things in psychology or I'm not doing things in biology, but they did help inform my new job because you still need people skills. So understanding psychology has helped me understand how to better work with people, the emotional intelligence, they like to call now of dealing, and collaborating because as an auditor, a lot of people are scared of auditors. They hear audit and they think about tax audit and IRS, but
I don't
it's
know why.
and that I don't right. And they think about, oh, they're going to jail. And there's a tendency to like become defensive. And so one of the things that my psychology courses that I took has helped me is that people skills of showing that, we're working together to make our working environment much safer and being effective. And so that's kind of, and it's fun for me, as I said, I liked it. I think it took a while, but I think I finally found what I would succeed in and excel in, and it won't feel like, I hate my job. Why am I doing this? Or, I'm so happy to wake up every morning, and I'm happy to learn new things, and I'm looking forward to mentoring once I become more established in
Yeah,
this new
yeah,
career.
that's good.
'Cause I think that's innate, and so I will find a way to mentor people. So
Awesome,
so
awesome,
I'll be there,
awesome.
and I'm also looking forward to being more engaged in my iSacker chapter because there is a breadth of knowledge, and this is just the beginning. I just have
Absolutely.
the first step in the pyramid. There's still the whole pyramid, to learn, and I think I'm in good hands. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. Honestly, this is what it's about for me and my team. It's all about student success. We provide all the tools and all the resources, and we really hope that students use those resources and implement them to find roles. And so, talking to students just like you is one of the high points for me in this program. So, thank you for the kind words and thank you for doing the work. And just like you said, this is just the beginning for you. I mean, first of all, you got a senior IT audit role. So you skipped
Yes.
the junior IT audit role entirely. So first of all, kudos to you for that.
Thank you.
But
Oh, can I say a
still,
little bit about that?
yes, sure.
Um, I think I was able to get the senior IT audit role because I kept marketing myself really hard to my boss. Because as soon as I finished the project management course, I sent him my certification before it even before I took a screenshot. I was like, now I'm a project manager as well. And so he was
You have
like,
to
okay,
sell
okay.
yourself,
And then he
like
was
you
like,
have to
one of
sell
your
your
IT audit
skill.
class.
Sorry, sorry for cutting you off. But
Oh my
yeah, and that's the thing. Sometimes people undersell themselves. I'm like, all out, like, let them know all your skills and everything you bring to the table so that
God.
when they're counting how much money they give to you, they look at those skills and they're like, okay, let's give her a little bit more. A little
Yeah,
bit more because
I was.
she's worth it from a skills perspective. So I love that you marketed yourself.
Yes,
Honestly,
yes,
it's,
yes, yes,
I
yes,
mean,
I did.
amazing,
Yeah.
amazing
And
job.
also, I ended up sending a thank you. So always send
Oh,
thank yous to all the people that you network with. So I sent thank yous even after I got the job because they played a pivotal role
oh,
in helping me obtain this job. And I sent thank yous to both of them. And one of the things that I need to send you that the thank you response I got back. But I think one of the things that I wanted to highlight and just make sure that you're aware is that they're looking at you and you're willing to mentor you. And since that I reached out to them and you network with them and they see you as a mentee, that you're coaching. And that was something that my current boss and also the other co-boss as well on the research side also said in their response to my thank yous was that that they look forward to continuously mentoring me and they've seen how I've grown and they're excited about mentoring
awesome.
me and seeing what
People.
and that's so I'm already building my network of mentors in this new field and I had those as well in my science career, both in grad school and even as a postdoc, I still reached out to them as I said, my graduate school mentor, I still reached out to her for advice while I was in the postdocs and stuff. So these connections, you need to water them, and you're like plants, if you put fertilizer and you reach out to them, we all have busy lives, but even just checking in and making sure that that you're sharing your progress, it goes a long way because you may never know when they will be vouching for you, because I know for a fact I wouldn't have had this job if not for the two directors that I talked to. And one became my immediate boss and the other is now my adjacent immediate boss. And it's very impressive to see that they will be my mentors as I navigate this new career path, and I'm gonna keep
Um,
building. in the chapters as well, so you can never have too many mentors, especially people that have gone through this field and are more higher ups, and they know, the history, and they can help you, in ways that you won't even anticipate. So yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. And I was going to say, people are usually willing to help.
Yes.
Sometimes you just need to ask, right? So I'm so glad you did that. And again, this is just the beginning for you. And I know based on just everything that you've shown, how you actually know how to do the work, this is just the beginning. You're going to go further, much further to greater heights by God's grace. And so, again, thank you so much, Benny. This has been really inspirational, even for me. Every time I listen, I'm like, this is really inspirational, and I know everybody out there has learned something from this interview here today. So thank you, Benny, so much for your time. And how about, I mean, just make it. How do I say this? Just go out there and be great. Go out there and
Thank
continue. You're
you.
already great. So go out there and continue the greatness. And to everyone,
Thank you.
you're welcome. And to everyone that just listened to this interview here today, I hope you've taken one or two things away that would help you in your career to cybersecurity, audit, and compliance. You can check the description box. I'm going to have information on our program there. But most importantly, I want you to know that this is possible for you. If you've been nervous, if you've had the same challenges around job fulfillment, financial issues, right? Work-life balance, those things can be addressed in the field if you go about it the right way, if you get the right knowledge, leverage your skill set. You can land roles that can help you address those pain points. So I really hope you learned something from this today, because I know that you out there, yes, you watching this, you can also make the career transition. So thank you, everyone. And that's the end of today's show. Bye, guys. All right, there you have it. Benny just shared with us her amazing transition from being a PhD in biomedical sciences, a biology background, right, to cybersecurity audit. She was able to make it happen and pretty much doubled her salary. So I want you to know that it's possible for you to make the career transition as well. You can check the description box below for more information on our programs. And I want you to know that a career in cybersecurity is possible for you. Thank you and see you in the next video. Bye.